The deep web hides secrets that few dare to uncover. In this video, we will explore the darkest corners of this hidden part of the internet. Prepare to hear real horror stories about the darkest side of the web. But beware, some things can never be forgotten. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Let's move on to the first story.
I'm sure everyone on the internet has heard of and used the website called Wikipedia, known as the largest collection of collaboratively accumulated knowledge in one place. It is often said that the site is the largest and most read reference work in history. We all use it for work, school, and even research purposes. As the number of visitors to the site grows every day, so does its popularity. However, what most Wikipedia users don't know is that the site has a truly disturbing and dark side. While everyone knows about Wikipedia, few people know about the hidden wiki, located on the dark web. This creepy site is inaccessible to the average internet user, as accessing it requires the Tor browser. Unlike the free encyclopedia we all know, the dark side of Wikipedia contains content that will make your stomach turn. The disturbing links on the site lead to hitmen, illegal chemicals, banned weapons, and uncensored content. Because of all this, my experience with the site is truly horrific, and the story you're about to hear will explain why. I remember well that time in school, as it was a period we all called the dark web phase. I don't remember how it started, but all the students at school were obsessed with the dark web. My classmates dared each other to go on the dark web, and anyone who didn't would be ridiculed and called a coward. Every new day, a student would come to school with a disturbing story and photos, telling us about the horrors they had seen on the dark web. These stories ranged from watching people being murdered in the infamous Red Rooms to buying illegal content on the notorious Silk Road. Basically, everyone was doing it, and those who weren't were challenged to do the same. It soon became a kind of sick rite of passage, as using the dark web was considered cool. It wasn't long before it was my turn. I still remember the fear in my heart that day when my friends dared me to visit the dark web. Even in my late teens, I couldn't handle morbid and disturbing content well, so I wasn't sure if I would do it. However, I knew that if I didn't, I couldn't face my friends. Looking back now, although I was terrified, the peer pressure to do it was overwhelming. All my friends were venturing into the dark web, and I told myself there was no reason I couldn't do the same. So, that day, I gathered my courage and downloaded the anonymous browser called Tor. For those who don't know, the Onion Router browser, or Tor, as everyone knows it, is one of the few ways to access the dark web. Unlike the visible web, the dark web is a bit scattered, not uniform, and can be overwhelming. Google does not exist on the dark web, as it has its own strange search engines. There are a few popular ones called Not Evil and Torch, which are used to navigate the dark web. But using these search engines can be very complicated for new users, especially if you don't know what to look for. However, there was one particular site my friends told me to visit, and that site was called the Hidden Wiki. It's a bit difficult to correctly explain what the Hidden Wiki is, as it's not a traditional search engine, but in simple terms, it's essentially a collection of popular dark web links. Once I arrived at the Hidden Wiki site, I found countless sites leading to illegal weapons, hard drugs, and snuff content. There were many to choose from, as I saw most of the top dark websites, such as the Cannibals Forum, where real cannibals discuss what it's like to eat human flesh and its fresh organs. I even saw a link to the Human Experiments page, a scary forum considered one of the most disturbing sites on the deep web. This is because the people behind the site conducted morbid experiments on living people. Apparently, there are experimental videos of these people injecting something into pregnant women, sterilizing unwilling participants, exposing babies to radiation, and many other horrible things I can't mention. I kept scrolling through the Hidden Wiki site while absorbing everything, and for some unknown reason, I was drawn to a particular link called Steak and Cheese, often referred to as Rotten.com. This site is known for having a large collection of macabre, violent, and grotesque videos. After clicking the link, I was taken to the Steak and Cheese homepage. The content I saw there is enough to make any man vomit everything he ate that day. I still feel disgusted today by the things I saw, as they were practically extreme snuff content. There were countless videos of children being tortured, Most of them were no older than 8 years. Another video, called The Divine Feast, showed live cannibalism, with a man eating dismembered human body parts. The more I looked at the site, the more horrified I felt. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I came across a video called True Eaters. I saw the horrific images of people in the video happily ripping apart small animals, like kittens and rats, before swallowing their carcasses. I had only been on the site for a few minutes, but I already wanted to leave. I was doubting everything and didn't think I could see more. But before I could leave, I stumbled upon a link to a video called Miss Necrophilia. From what I could gather, Miss Necrophilia appeared to be a dancer. She had many videos on her page, where she sang songs and danced with what appeared to be plastic mannequins. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't leave the site at that moment. I had already seen more than enough disturbing content, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I was drawn to the Miss Necrophilia video. It was the only normal video I had seen on the entire Steak and Cheese site, so I gave in and clicked the video link to watch it in full. At the beginning of the video, the woman I assumed was Miss Necrophilia simply stared at the camera. She had applied a lot of black eyeliner above and below her eyes. I still remember the look in her eyes as she continued staring at the camera. It's hard to put into words, but her eyes seemed completely empty, and it felt like she had no soul. The video then cut to her living room, where there were 4 mannequins sitting in chairs behind her. The living room had better lighting, so I could see better, but it was then that I noticed something strange about these mannequins. For starters, they looked too realistic to be mannequins, as the hair of the mannequins, which resembled a man about 40 years old, looked too real. I also had similar thoughts about the other 3 mannequins. The first 2 were mannequins of 2 small children, a boy and a girl who looked to be around 9 and 10 years old. As Miss Necrophilia moved the mannequins back and forth, I noticed the movement of her fingers, and it seemed really strange. I had a feeling something was wrong. Even with the strange appearance of the first 3 mannequins, it was the last one that puzzled me the most. This particular mannequin resembled a 10-month-old baby, but what disturbed me about it was that it looked like a pail-sized doll. Miss Necrophilia then picked up the largest male mannequin and began dancing with it while singing a strangely cheerful tune. I couldn't understand what she was singing, as the song was in another language, but as she danced and sang with her mannequin, I felt there was something I wasn't seeing, and then I realized. The horrible realization finally hit me when Miss Necrophilia brought the life-sized doll closer to the camera while dancing, and I caught a glimpse of thousands of worms crawling all over the male mannequin she was dancing with. And then my brain finally understood. They weren't mannequins, nor life-sized dolls. They were corpses. They were all stiff and embalmed with something. At first, I mistook them for mannequins. If she hadn't brought them closer to the camera, I never would have realized they were beginning to rot. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. My mind struggled to comprehend the atrocity I had just seen, and I was paralyzed by shock. I tried to find an explanation for why a woman would be dancing with corpses in her own living room, but I couldn't. Things took a more terrifying turn when I noticed a photo in the background. It was a family photo, showing Miss Necrophilia pregnant, her husband, and her 2 children, all of whom bore an incredible resemblance to the corpses. My stomach churned as I felt bile rise in my throat. Even after vomiting my lunch, I still couldn't move, hypnotized by the screen and unable to stop the video. Looking back, I don't know how long I stayed in that position. It could have been 15 minutes or more. Suddenly, a dialogue box appeared on the screen, pulling me out of that horrific trance. The message came from an anonymous chat room on the dark web and said, "You've been watching this video for a long time, friend. I assume you enjoy Miss Necrophilia's content. I'm a big fan of hers too. You know, she takes requests, and I'm sure Allison would be the perfect candidate for the next dancing corpse. After all, she takes ballet classes." My heart sank at the mention of Allison, and I let out a guttural scream. I told myself it couldn't be, but I don't believe in coincidences. Allison was my 12-year-old little sister. I had no idea how the person on the other side of the message knew this. What troubled me even more was that she did indeed take ballet classes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I looked again at the date and saw it was April 16, 2010, a Friday. With adrenaline and fear coursing through my body, I grabbed my phone and called the police. I was speaking so fast it was practically incoherent. Even after the call, the police thought it was a prank. So, I immediately called my mom and asked where my sister was. She said school had ended and that she had left her at ballet class. I insisted she call the ballet school and confirm that Allison was still there. But when she called, the school said Allison was nowhere to be found. All the blood drained from my face as I thought the worst. I tried to explain everything, but I couldn't find the words. Knowing this was something I couldn't adequately explain over the phone, I ran to my mom's office, which was near our home. One managed to get there in under 8 minutes. I arrived out of breath and took a few seconds to calm down before telling her everything. When I finished, my mom approached me and slapped me in the face. She had never hit me before, and I knew exactly why she did it. I had put my little sister's life in danger for a stupid challenge. I could see the tears and fear in her eyes as she dialed 911. When the call was answered, she calmly explained everything. They told us to wait at least 24 to 48 hours before reporting Allison as missing. But my mom pleaded with the officers to do something now, feeling that time was of the essence. My mom's old friend, Officer Daniel Barnes, managed to convince the higher-ups to start a search. Within an hour, officers filled the streets with photos of my sister, asking if anyone had seen her. After telling the officers everything, I also joined the search. With each passing hour, my heart raced faster. We searched for 13 consecutive hours, covering the entire city, but found nothing. My mom, who was in tears, couldn't look me in the eye. I didn't blame her. I was the only one to blame. As tensions mounted, I started to think the worst, imagining Allison being brutally murdered by psychopaths and wondering if she would be the next dancing corpse of Miss Necrophilia. Both the officers and the rest of the search team were visibly exhausted and starting to slow down. Some wanted to continue the next day. Just before the search was called off, we received news that she had been found, lying on a bench on the outskirts of town. We drove as fast as we could to the location, and my mom cried tears of joy as she embraced Allison. She was checked by paramedics, who said she had been chloroformed but was otherwise fine. When she regained consciousness, we asked her what had happened. She said she was taken from her ballet class shortly after our mom dropped her off. She didn't remember much after being grabbed, as everything was blurry. But one thing she didn't forget was what the kidnapper had said. When I asked what he had said, my little sister looked straight into my eyes and said, "Tell Daniel I said hello." The entire experience put the whole city on high alert. Our family had to move to my mom's sister's house while authorities kept watch over our home to ensure it was safe. I was questioned again and told the officers everything, assuring them that I had used an anonymous browser. But they said that didn't matter with the kind of people on the dark web, as accessing my IP address, webcam, or computer history is easy with the level of hackers roaming around. Detectives believed that was how they obtained such privileged and personal information in seconds. Authorities made numerous attempts to track down the unidentified man who had kidnapped my sister, but he vanished without a trace. They also tried to locate Miss Necrophilia, but this proved impossible as her videos had been removed from Steak and Cheese. As the investigation came to a close, and I went back to school, I heard that the whole dark web phase had died down, as both teachers and authorities were warning students against using or visiting the dark web. It took a while for our family to recover from the incident. My mom said she forgave me, but I could never forgive myself for what I put my family through. So, to everyone listening, take my story as a warning. Stay away from the dark web. While it may seem fun at first, I know all too well that a simple link can mark you for life. Did you know that only about 10% to 20% of the information available on the internet is present in browsers like Google, Yahoo, Firefox, etc.? And nearly 90% of people worldwide access information only through these browsers. But once you access the dark web, that's when you discover the true power of the internet. Since our childhood, my best friend Mashas has always been interested in computers and technology. Mashas's father had an electronics store, and whenever we weren't at school or studying, we spent our time at the store trying to do something with all the spare electronic parts that were there. One time, Mashas's father bought a used computer for a very cheap price. It needed some repairs and told us that if we could fix it ourselves, we could keep it. Masha's father was an amazing guy, knowing that we both had a taste for electronics and loved to support us in his unique way. A week later, we had read many books about computers and even browsed the internet at our school library. We finally fixed the computer. Now, my best friend and I had a computer. We were only 17 years old, and the internet era was still relatively new. We spent all our free moments on the internet. We had accounts on Facebook and MySpace, and we even ordered 3 books online, knowing that buying and selling online would be the next big thing. Until we discovered the most hidden and discreet side of the internet, the dark web. If you think that the sky's the limit on the internet, you need to experience the dark web and you'll be surprised at how much more there is. The dark web isn't necessarily used for illegal activities. It's just more discreet and has low traceability. Being the stupid teenagers we were, we did what any teenager would do. If you know, you know. After graduating, we both applied to the same university, which had the same computer engineering program, and guess what? We were both accepted. Our parents were very proud. Moreover, it was a community college, so we still live with them. While we were at university, around our 3rd year, Masha's had a brilliant idea. By this point, we had already been introduced to cybersecurity, hacking, and much more, but we knew that people were gullible and decided to take advantage of that. We created a website on the dark web that offered services. You might be wondering what kind of services we offered. So, let me tell you, we offered hitman services, and no, neither of us was a hitman. In one of our classes, we learned that crime in the United States is rampant, and most crimes occur on the internet. So, we decided to do something about it. We made our hitman website as legitimate as possible. Masha's Kleinfeld was the CEO of the company, or rather, the fake CEO, and I, O.T. Jameson, became the fake CFO of the company. We added fake customer testimonials and even fake hitman profiles. It looked like any other legitimate e-commerce site, except that our site offered men and assistants to kill people on their behalf. We also made it look so legitimate that the police or any authority wouldn't be able to trace the crime back to you. I mean, if I were a gullible criminal who found a service like this, I would definitely hire a hitman from our site to do the job for me. At first, we didn't get any traction, like any other news site, but once we invested a bit in ads and marketing for the site, we finally received our first order. It was a woman in her 30s who contacted us. Her name was Jennifer Frank, and she was a homemaker and mother of 3. She wanted to hire a hitman to kill her husband's girlfriend, as he had been cheating on her for a year. Although we had created the site, we really had no idea how to handle what happened next. The woman had gone so far as to make the initial payment, or should I say an advance for the service. She provided all the details about her husband and his girlfriend and chose a hitman from the portfolio we had on our site, and everything turned into a big mess. We had $5,000 in our bank accounts and a target to kill. Masha's and I were a bit scared and excited that we had gotten our first client, but before we could do anything about our first order, we received another. This time, it wasn't someone seeking revenge or an angry wife, but rather a large crime syndicate contacting us. They wanted us to kill a person for them, a rich businessman, in fact, and didn't want to dirty their hands, so they decided to hire external help, i.e. us. Additionally, they gave us $5,000 upfront. Now, Masha's and I were visibly scared. We had to do something about it very soon, or all this would turn against us and we'd soon be in serious trouble. Now that we were on the radar of these dangerous people, the best thing we could do was seek out our cybersecurity professor. We knew he had helped the police a few times and was an amazing guy. We went to his office and told him everything. His name was Jack Adamos, and we knew he could help us. When we shared our story, we thought he would scold us or at least be disappointed, but instead, he was laughing his head off. He told us that our project was brilliant and that he would consider giving us extra credit for it. But we wanted to get out of the problem we had created. We had written on our site that the work would be real in the next 15 days, as our time was running out. Professor Adamos made some calls and then informed us that, from now on, our site would be managed by the cybercrime department. They would use it to catch potential criminals and vengeful people who wanted to harm others. Furthermore, the advance we received was ours to keep. In the first week of control over our site, The cybercrime department took down the entire crime syndicate, and even the woman who wanted to hire a hitman for her husband's unfaithful girlfriend was behind bars. However, in the meantime, our site was getting more and more clients, and because of that, many potential criminals were being caught. And yes, we were receiving all the deposits as payment for creating the site. A year later, around graduation, the cybercrime department asked us to create a similar site for other browsers, so we could capture more criminals. It has been 6 years since we made those sites, and to this day we are still helping to capture criminals on the dark web and in other ways. The site made both Masha's and I a lot of money and made the world a safer place. So, if any of you want to hire a hitman, just visit rentahitman.com. I am Thomas Moore, and I am in Cape Town with my parents. I can't leave them alone. They have been worried about me ever since my sister died a year ago. My sister, Camila, was in high school and always had a difficult temperament, getting irritated and upset over small things. I worked at a bookstore near her school, and one day, when I went to pick her up, I saw Camila arguing with a boy on the sidewalk. As soon as I approached, she ended the argument and got into the car without saying a single word the entire way. I decided to give her space and ask about it later. The next day was Saturday, and I decided to spend some time with Camila to cheer her up. I went to her room and found her glued to the computer. I sat down next to her and asked, "What's the plan for today? Do you want to do something?" Camila rolled her eyes and didn't say anything. Dealing with a teenager is difficult, but I was stubborn too. I saw that she was reading something online and asked, "What are you reading?" She told me she was browsing the dark web on a platform called Hidden Answers, similar to Google, where you can ask questions and get answers, no matter how strange they are. Since the dark web can be accessed anonymously, people become very disturbing on these platforms. Believe me, I'm speaking from experience. I told Camila that it wasn't safe, and to keep an eye on her, I started browsing the dark web in my spare time. The Hidden Answers platform is extremely disturbing. I couldn't believe people could be so insane. I read a conversation where someone was asking how to dispose of their mother's corpse without getting into trouble. I was completely horrified, but I thought someone must be joking. However, reading the responses, I realized it was serious. What was more unsettling was that someone responded, "You can cut the body into small pieces and dispose of them gradually. For example, you can secretly feed the solid pieces to your dog or the neighbor's dog and then burn the rest every night in small quantities." I did the same with my husband. I immediately disconnected from that page and decided to talk to my sister to keep her away from the dark web. The next day, when I took Camila shopping, I told her about the terrifying conversation on Hidden Answers, but I was surprised by her reaction. Camila just shrugged and laughed. "God, brother, stop telling me what to do. Get a life of your own." It hurt me. I didn't say anything else because I knew she would be more defiant, but I really wished I had done more, had told her how much I cared before she took that drastic step that changed our lives forever. Camila was at a sleepover at a friend's house, and I was having dinner with my parents. My mother suddenly said something very strange. She looked at me and said, "Thomas, I think Camila is doing something impure." I didn't expect anything like that, so I was very surprised and asked why she said that. My mother told me that, in the afternoon, she had been cleaning Camilla's room and found some very strange things under her bed. I went to her room and looked under the bed. There was a long rope, a pair of snake-shaped candles, and some burned pages inside a wooden box. I couldn't read the burned pages, but I realized Camila was out of control. I told my parents I would take care of everything and that they didn't need to worry. The next day, I secretly went to her school and looked for the boy I had seen her arguing with. I asked about the things I found under her bed. The boy told me he had broken up with Camila after she asked him to join her in a satanic ritual she read about on the dark web. He said that this ritual promised an extreme spiritual experience, leading the person to an unparalleled ecstasy. I was really worried about my sister. I went straight home and waited for her return. As soon as Camila arrived, I noticed that her eyes were red and swollen. Something had happened at her friend's house the night before, because it was clear she hadn't slept. She went up to her room and closed the door, I knocked on the door, saying, "Camila, open the door. I know you're doing something very strange. You have no idea how dangerous this could be. Open the door now." She didn't open at any point. Instead, she yelled from inside the room, "Why don't you mind your own life? It's my life, okay? I'm not your little sister anymore. I'll come out when I want to." I didn't know what to do. My parents weren't home. They had gone to visit my grandmother. It was just me and my sister. I went downstairs and sat on the couch, thinking about talking to her when she came out of the room. I don't remember when I fell asleep, but when I woke up, things felt like a nightmare, only this time, the nightmare was real. Someone had tied my hands behind me, and I was lying on the floor, with my mouth covered. I panicked, thinking there was a thief in our house. I was very scared and worried about Camila. I tried to scream, but my voice sounded muffled. When I opened my eyes, I saw that the door was locked from the inside, but I could hear voices upstairs. After a few minutes, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was my sister, but she was no longer the same person. Camila was dressed in black. I assumed she tied me up after knocking me unconscious with chloroform or something like that because my head felt heavy. She leaned over me and began to laugh hysterically. Camila was completely out of her mind and said, "I know you'll try to stop me, but you can't, Thomas. I'm going to be part of something spiritual." The more she talked, the more insane she seemed. She kept saying that she had read on Hidden Answers that a satanic cult claimed that attempting suicide could provide the greatest spiritual experience of a lifetime, the experience of seeing the universe unfold before your eyes at the very moment you feel you're about to die. What happened next destroyed our family forever. Before my eyes, Camila climbed onto a chair and tied the rope around her neck, which was hanging from the ceiling. I dragged myself across the floor, trying to free myself, but I couldn't. My eyes couldn't believe what they were witnessing. She was about to do something terrible, something from which she could never come back. I cried and screamed, desperately trying to free my hands so I could run to her and stop her. Camila stared at me and said, "Don't worry, Thomas. I'm not going to die. I'll take the rope off at the right moment. All I want is to see who I am. I want to experience what they said." I knew she was sick. Her eyes were moving randomly as she spoke. I could see from the frightening smile that she needed help, but I couldn't do anything. I was helpless. A loud thud was heard when she kicked the chair, and her body began to convulse like a fish out of water. Suddenly, Camila grabbed the rope and tried to pull it off. But oh, my little sister couldn't. It was so tight that her feet kept swinging in the air. She was suffocating in front of my eyes. I cried and cried, but nothing made that moment stop. When my parents got home, my mother collapsed upon seeing my sister's lifeless body hanging from the ceiling. My father didn't know what to do upon seeing that scene and found me unconscious, tied up and gagged on the floor. They called the police and took Camila's body away. I lost my sister. She died before my eyes, and I couldn't save her. Though I tried with all my might, the dark web took Camila from us. My mother no longer speaks. She just sits in the living room, staring at the ceiling where Camila hung herself. I've suggested many times that we move to another house, but she always refuses. My mother believes that Camila is still with us in the house. If you are reading this, I want to say that the dark web is not the right place to seek solutions. If you are going through any kind of problem, please stay away from that hell, or it will drag you down so deeply that you'll never be able to get out. Talk to your friends and family whenever you need help, and help others when you see they are in the same situation. I searched tirelessly, but I couldn't find any trace of that cult group on the dark web, on Hidden Answers. Nights have been haunted by nightmares, where I relive the moment I saw my little sister suffocating while hanging herself. There's nothing I can do to bring her back. If you ever encounter someone in a similar situation, please intervene. Don't let peer pressure, curiosity, or any other reason lead them to dark and dangerous places. The pain and guilt I carry are immense. I learn it, in the harshest way, how important it is to be present for our loved ones, to listen to them, and to support them. While we can't control all the actions of those we love, we can try to guide them towards safer and healthier paths. The dark web is filled with dangers that we can barely imagine, and unfortunately, my family learned that in the most tragic way possible. Please take my story as a warning. The dark web is not a place for games or harmless curiosities. The consequences can be devastating, and in our case, they were. Protect your loved ones and always be alert to signs that something is wrong. Sometimes, a conversation or intervention at the right moment can save a life. If you know someone who is going through a difficult time, especially if they are involved with the dark web, do everything you can to help them. My sister Camila is gone because of a place filled with darkness and evil, and I don't want anyone else to go through that. Remember, there are always other ways to find help. If you need to talk, reach out to someone you trust. And if you see someone getting involved in dangerous situations, don't hesitate to intervene. Don't underestimate the impact your actions can have. Life is precious and fragile. Don't let the darkness of the dark web steal that from you or anyone you. This happened in January 2020, before the start of the coronavirus outbreak. I got a job at Walmart to save money for college and moved into my brother's house, who was already working at a startup. After a week of work, the two of us relaxed at home, inviting some friends over. There were 5 of us in total, including my brother and me. We would order pizza and watch action movies most weekends. My brother often drank beer with 2 of his friends, and they would tell funny jokes. My friend Joel and I would play video games and laugh at their jokes. In short, weekends were pretty fun. One weekend, we were relaxing as usual when one of my brother's friends, Jimmy, started talking about the dark web. Joel and I got interested, so we stopped playing to listen. Jimmy said the dark web was beyond our imagination. He told us that he had explored it a few times with his colleagues. My brother suddenly got excited and said we could do it too, to pass the time. I wasn't sure how safe it would be, but they were going to do it anyway. Jimmy downloaded the Tor browser on my brother's laptop. He said it was the only way to access the dark web. In short, the Tor browser helps you stay anonymous on the internet. For example, your IP address remains hidden. As we continued our search on the hidden wiki, the Wikipedia of the dark web, it took us just 5 minutes to realize that we had entered unknown and dangerous territory. We found many creepy and bizarre sites. I don't know if you will believe me or not, but we found a site that described how to cook a woman. Yes, folks, I know it sounds horrible, but there were instructions on that site on how to cook a woman's flesh, what types of cuts should be made on specific parts, what tools to use for it, and all kinds of disgusting information. I was very uncomfortable with how things were progressing, so I said out loud, I don't like what we're doing right now. It's equally disturbing and scary as hell. My brother agreed with me, so we left that site immediately. Jimmy shrugged, very casually, saying that the dark web wasn't for kids and mocked me for being a child. I didn't respond because he was being an idiot anyway. We were about to disconnect when a notification popped up on the screen. The browser had many ads, like on a Google page, but we barely noticed any of them. However, there was something different about this ad. Joel pointed it out, saying it had created quite a buzz among many YouTubers, so we finally got interested. The ad said, "Buy if you can." Without thinking much, my brother clicked on it and opened an eBay page. But the more we browsed through the contents of these boxes, it seemed that the boxes were supposed to be a surprise. I remember watching a video online where a YouTuber opened a mystery box after buying it on the dark web. The box ended up having broken doll heads and a bunch of junk like rat skulls, broken pieces of wood, etc. Each box had its own price, and there was no information about the weight or size of these boxes. As I said, my brother is very impulsive by nature and suggested that we could order a mystery box and open it together the next weekend. I was totally against this idea because I read online that sometimes these mystery boxes contain evidence of murders that criminals are trying to get rid of. But as always, no one listened to me, and Jimmy laughed at me once again. I was really irritated by his idiotic behavior, so I decided to go to sleep. Joel told me the next morning at work that they had ordered a mystery box for $200 and would open it the next weekend. I didn't say anything because it hardly mattered, and I continued stacking ketchup on the food counter. After getting home, my brother seemed worried, so I asked what was going on. He told me he received a text message in the afternoon from an unknown number. It said he would receive a package that was non-refundable since it had already been paid for with bitcoins. I was sure Jimmy had forced him to buy it for some stupid thrill. I asked him to show me the text message. When he handed me the phone, I saw that the message said the time and location of the delivery would be informed to us, and we would have to go there to pick it up. We are a generation of online shoppers, but for the first time, I saw such a shady method of package delivery. No way was I letting my brother go alone, so I told him that the next time he received details about picking up the package, Joel and I would go with him. A week went by, and nothing happened. It was Friday, a day before our weekend gathering, when my brother received another message from the same number. An address was mentioned in it. It was about 5 miles from our house. We got into the car and picked up Joel on the way. Upon reaching the mentioned location, we arrived at a bridge over a riverbed. My brother said he had come here a few times with his friends to drink beer. At this point, we slowed the car down, expecting a delivery person with our package, but surprisingly, no one was standing there. Joel said, "I think someone fooled us. Looks like you guys wasted money for nothing," and then started laughing. I joined him because I was already expecting such a result, but my brother suddenly pointed out the car window on the left side and said, "Look, there's a cardboard box." We all followed his direction and saw that he was right. We got out of the car and walked towards the left sidewalk. There really was a medium-sized cardboard box there. All this time, we hadn't seen anyone passing through this area, so it seemed very strange to see an unknown package randomly thrown on the street. The box had no address or name. I lifted it and realized it wasn't that heavy. There was definitely something inside. We went back home, and my brother invited all his friends, including Jimmy, saying there was a surprise waiting for them. Even Joel seemed quite excited to open the package, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease from the moment that box entered our lives. The table was set with drinks and snacks. I was sure something unexpected would happen that night. A strange feeling ran down my spine the entire time as I stared at the box. The box was on the glass table in front of our couches. Around 7:30 in the evening, everyone arrived at our house. Usually, everyone used to come around 8:30 or 9 at night, but due to the arrival of the mystery box, everyone showed up as soon as they could. Jimmy rushed to the table and grabbed the box in his hands. "Guys, this is giving me chills. Let's open it," he said, his voice brimming with excitement. I sat next to him, and everyone gathered in a circle. It felt as if time had stopped. All eyes were fixed on the box. I sat a little further away because if something strange came out of it, I didn't want to be too close. The box was heavily sealed with tape on the outside. Joel grabbed a sharp steel knife and started cutting along the seams. After a few seconds of doing this, the box finally opened. Inside, there were 3 separate bubble-wrapped packages. Opening the smallest one, a belt came out. Now, let me tell you, there was something very unusual about this belt. The leather was very fragile, quite translucent, and pale in color, even feeling strange to the touch. Continuing to open the other 2 packages, we discovered that someone had sent us a bunch of seemingly normal leather items. There was a woman's handbag and a pair of socks. While the handbag and wallet seemed normal, the socks were truly disgusting. Upon closer inspection, we unraveled the horror that awaited us. The socks were also made from the same leather as the wallet and the handbag, but they had a lot of hair on them. Believe me, folks, I'm not making this up. These socks weren't just covered in human hair. There was actually skin growing from these socks. My brother jumped from his spot and threw the socks away. "Oh my God, this is really human skin, guys!" He screamed at the top of his lungs. Everyone was in shock and terrified. Jimmy started to panic like a child. "I can't believe someone sent us products made from human leather. This is really scary, man. What are we going to do?" He kept screaming and panicking, and everyone was freaking out. I just stood there, staring at the handbag. My eyes couldn't believe that the leather had once been the skin of a living person. Joel started crying, saying, "What if someone murdered this person, and now they're trying to get rid of the body by turning their skin into leather products? The police are going to come after us, damn it. Guys, what have we done?" I realized that everyone was terrified, so before it was too late, I had to do something. I made everyone sit down, and after they calmed down a bit, I said the best thing we could do was hand this package over to the police ourselves. Jimmy, as usual, got even more scared and was about to insult me again when my brother's phone rang. Someone had sent a message from the same number. I opened the message, and the blood in my body rushed to my heart, making it pound like drums. The message read, "Enjoy the products from www.humanskin.com." Without wasting any more time, I gathered everything and put it back in the box. Then, we all rushed to our backyard and burned the entire package in the trash incinerator. My brother changed his phone number after that incident. That was the last time we ever browsed the dark web. At least, I will never go to that creepy place again.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any new and terrifying videos.